Good evening, everyone. This is an experiment by the Trashion Refashion group. My name is Dave Kid, and this is Sophia Wang. Sophia has been our social media manager for a few years, is also a designer of past years, and also models her own designs. And our goal this evening in this 16th year of Trashion Refashion is just to put forth some of the frequently asked questions and then answer any questions that might be out there that we haven't captured in our FAQs. So I'm going to just kick us off and welcome again. So just to give you a sense of the timeline, we did have a question coming in here. Why are you holding this Q&A in December? And the call for entries just opened. And what we're wanting to do is to capture those folks who might be on the fence and not sure whether they want to submit a design or even what Trashion Refashion is. So wanting to give you a sense of the timeline, the sequence of events that happened. So we did launch our call for entries on December the 2nd. And it closes on February 17th, which is pretty quick. And we'll talk through what does it mean to have a call for entries close. Basically, by that time, we need to have pictures of a finished look. So the look itself doesn't need to be completely sewn or even put together, but we do need to have a sense for what the design will be, and we have to have a degree of confidence that the design will be ready to walk the runway in April. So it's a pretty short time frame to decide on a design and put it together. And so we're wanting to get out ahead of that and answer any questions and encourage people, especially people who haven't ever tried this before, and reach out and make sure that you feel as comfortable as possible joining our community. Then in March, we will announce the results. So in the middle of February, the call for entries closes. There is a planning committee that looks through the designs according to the judging criteria, and we'll go through exactly what those are in just a minute. And we have some time to decide which designs would be in, which designs would be conditionally in, which means that they show a lot of promise, but there's some aspect of the judging criteria that they're not quite meeting. So the judges will say, if you would like for this to be considered, here are some things that you can do. And we give an opportunity for the designer to amend their design or not, to say, I'll try again next year. And then on the 13th, any of the designs that are in or even conditionally in are invited to an online orientation where we let you know here's what it's like to really be in the show. And both models and designers are invited to that event. Then at the end of March, so you can see this goes really quickly. So we have the call for entries closing on February 17th, and then just a couple of weeks later, we have our first rehearsal at Harmony School. And this is where we walk through a mock-up of what it'll be like to see the designs in order, for them to walk the runway, to hear how their designs are being described, to meet our MCs, and then also to have an opportunity to provide input on maybe the music or the description that accompanies their design on the runway. And then finally, the show happens mid-April, before you know it. And we're once again honored to be at the Buzzkirk-Chumley Theater. It's always a sold-out house, so when the tickets start selling in February, I encourage you to snap yours up. If you're a designer or a model, obviously you'll have your own ticket to the show. So how do you submit a design? If you would like to do this, the first thing is to go to bloomingtontrashion.org, and we've tried to answer as many questions as possible, but you'll see some buttons on there. one button says submit a design, and another button will be express your interest in being a model. And then there's a third button, which is express your interest in being a volunteer. So as with many nonprofit situations, events, it takes a village to put this on, and especially the day of. We need lots of extra hands. So if you're interested in kind of being on the sidelines, being on the periphery of the event, then please join us as a volunteer. And I do want to mention, I haven't mentioned this yet, but the event, the whole event, is a fundraiser for the Center for Sustainable Living, which is an institution here in Bloomington, which is comprised of a number of different projects, one of which is called Discardia, which is dedicated to helping people learn how to extend the life of their garments. And we are right now in the Monroe County Public Library, and the second Saturday of every month, I believe, they have a mending day where you have the opportunity to bring a piece of clothing and get advice on how it could be mended and the life of that clothing extended. Hi, come on in. So we're going through right now how to submit a design. Have you been involved with Trashion, Refashion before?
No, I was going to do it last year, but I ran out of time.
Was going to do it last year, ran out of time. I get it. Yeah, great. Well, if you have any questions about it, then that's exactly what we're here for. And we've just gone through the timeline, which is we opened the call for entries, and we'll be accepting entries through the middle of February. And then pretty shortly afterwards, we'll be announcing designs that have made the cut, designs that are in conditionally. So maybe they haven't quite met the judging criteria, and the judges have some suggestions if the designer would like to amend their designs and resubmit. And then those designs that didn't meet the criteria. And then after that, there's a rehearsal at Harmony School, which is kind of a dry run. And then a couple weeks later, it's the show. So things move really quickly once the call for entries closes. So we're wanting to answer as many questions as we can right now. So in order to submit, you go to bloomingtontrashion.org. And then you can submit up to 3 designs. And we use a platform called Easy Chair, which will really walk you through the process of submitting that information. You can submit up to 5 images. One of them does need to be the raw materials that you're using before you transform them. And the reason is that as the models are walking the runway, we show the raw materials and a feature of the design that you may not be able to see if you're way up in the balcony. So we project those on screen, and then you see the model in the transformed look. And it's always, that's the big reveal. And that's the number one thing you want on a runway, right? Is that element of surprise. And oh my gosh, I can't believe it started as this pile of stuff, and it's this beautiful ball gown or whatever it was transformed into. What we judge on is originality, the amount of unwanted or previously owned materials needs to be a substantial portion. We say 90%, but we don't have a way of quantifying that. Just most of the garment should be something that has been owned previously. So it could be thrifted, or it could be something that was found literally in a trash can. It needs to be a complete ensemble, so you can't just submit a shirt or a skirt or a pair of shorts or a pair of pants, as fabulous as they may be. It needs to be a full look, and that doesn't mean that you have to have constructed the shoes. And you can also use new materials for some of the embellishments and the accessories. And then the number one thing is about the degree of transformation. So we're looking at how original is this, and then also how much does it not resemble the source materials. So we had a question actually today in the steering team, there was actually a seasoned designer said, I have a bunch of my grandmother's old slips. They're beautiful satin slips, and I'm wanting to make a dress. But going from slip to dress, is that enough of a transformation? And our response was, if we can't tell that it was a slip, like it could have been, this beautiful satin material, if we can't tell that it was specifically a night dress, then the transformation, you've done your job. And that goes for any material. A lot of times designers will use things that are made of fabric, but were not intended to be a garment, like drapery or a tablecloth. We have a lot of designs that are tablecloth based. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. And if you can't really tell, like you can see some elements of the tablecloth in there, but you can't tell that, oh, that's a tablecloth. Then if there's an element of surprise, then that's what we're looking for in the transformation. Models and volunteers, I mentioned this earlier too, same process. Go to bloomingtontrashion.org and click on one of the buttons there. We get back to you pretty quickly. Myself and the other co-producer, Jeanette Tillotson, are answering those questions, those emails on a daily basis, so we get back to you pretty quickly. And we'd love to have models of all sizes and volunteers of all capabilities. We're always looking for new ideas. So now we're going into some of the frequently asked questions, but before I get into that, I just want to ask if either of you have any questions that you specifically came here and wanted to ask.
I wondered about the materials that you would use for piecing things together, like for adhesion, and I'm gathering that hot glue is permitted.
Oh yeah.
Like, I read thread is okay even if it's new. And
Right.
the hot glue would be new. And so there aren't really any restrictions as far as that goes.
No, yeah, that's a great question. So her question is, when we're talking about the amount of materials that are pre-owned, how does the adhesion, if you're using hot glue or safety pins or straight pins or anything that, or the thread that goes into it, none of those need to be from previously owned. However, we do have Art Remains, which is a nonprofit here in town, and they have donated art materials and may be able to supply even those elements that could be previously owned. She says they have glue guns and glue sticks, so Art Remains, and they're in the basement of Goods for Cooks on the square. Yeah, they have limited hours, so check with them. Is it artremains.org?
Yes.
Okay, artremains, all one word, .org, and you can find their hours and get that. Are there any questions that, if you were counseling a new designer, Sue, that you would say definitely make sure that you know about this?
I always struggle with whether my garment is Trashion or Refashion.
Okay. Oh, great. That's a great question. So, yeah, that's actually the first question here. It's like,
Even reading that, when I'm done, I'm still not sure.
okay. Great.
Some I'm sure, but some I'm not.
So in past years, this is called the Trashion Refashion Runway Show. And there was a runway, a group of designs that were specifically categorized as Trashion. And the second runway or a group of designs were specifically categorized as Refashion, or, vice versa. But we found, and we got feedback from a lot of the designers, that my design is never fully one or the other. And so we said, don't worry about it then. So even though we ask when you submit your design, do you think this is Trashion, or do you think it's Refashion, or do you think it's both? In the application process now, it's really just to check in and make sure that thinking of submitting a design that is fully from new material. So we're not as concerned which category it falls into anymore, as much as does it meet the threshold for previously owned materials. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So what is the difference between Trashion and Refashion? What we've said is that Trashion is something that, taking material that was going to be discarded, was going to be thrown away, and it was saved from the landfill. And Refashion is essentially upcycling of clothing. So maybe it's a jacket that became a cape, or some way that the look of it was fully modernized. So a lot of times we have, every year, we have designs that are comprised of men's neckties, which are gorgeous and surprisingly heavy. And there's a basket of them at Art Remain. So if that's your jam, now you know exactly where to go to get them. But so we've had dresses, we've had skirts, we've had full suits that are made out of men's neckties. So that's what we're looking at when we talk about Refashion. One of the other questions has been, well, what kind of design shows up best on the stage? And our answer is really a complete one, and one that is really bold. And in this design here, you can see this was a duvet cover. And she took the centrality of the design and the boldness of the design and created this beautiful A-frame long dress out of it. So be bold, be creative, and be resourceful. So the ones that get the biggest wows and oohs and ahs are ones where the design is just really super creative, or the materials are not what you would expect. So also every year we have the pop tops or pop tabs from soda cans, and people make chainmail dresses or embellishments out of them, and they're just gorgeous. So if it's an unconventional material, it will usually get a big crowd response, and we are getting, the crowds get into it. When they see a design they like, they let you know. So it's a lot of fun. How many designs can you submit? We ask that you submit no more than 3 designs, and we also have a way for you to be able to rank them. We never know if we're going to get 15 designs or 1,500 designs. And so we ask that you rank your designs so that we are always considering the one that you think is your best representation. And then we have a second and third choice. And we do ask that your 3 designs be differentiated from one another. So they're not variations on theme, that they are truly different designs. Can you submit anything new? So this goes to your question. Yes, you can submit up to 10% that's new, and that's not including thread or the adhesive or shoes. Can you submit a design that's been shown before? We ask that the design be completed in the last 3 years, and if it was shown in a previous Trashion Refashion show, then it can be used as the source material, but we need to not be able to see that design or recognize that design. There are other runway shows around the state and around the region, and if it has been shown in one of those, this year we're saying bring it. That would be great. We'd love the celebrity cred of that, of bringing something from another metropolitan area. But if it's been shown in Trashion Refashion, it would be no, unless you're using it as source material that you will once again transform. Do you need to have a full look or just a shirt or jacket? So it does need to be a full ensemble, although you don't have to have made the shoe component of it. Do you need to find your own model? No, you don't. In fact, we have already 8 individuals of all shapes and sizes, and every every way of identifying their gender. So if you're looking for some inspiration, or if you have a design and you're looking for a model of a particular type, we might have that. So reach out and let us know. And you can also model your own design. Do you want to say anything about being both a designer and a model of your own design?
Well, I guess I figured that it would just be easier to work on myself. And I didn't have any fashion design, like professional background or experience going into Trashion. And I think I'm just really grateful to be really supported by the fellow committee members in constructing my design, especially my first year. And yeah, I feel like I've always designed with the intention of modeling it myself. I couldn't really imagine designing for anyone else. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. And we do have quite a few of the designers that model their own. So if that is you, then don't be afraid to model it. It's a great choice. And of course, you know your own aesthetic better than anybody. So it can really come across. Can you use your own hair and makeup stylist? Yes, absolutely. However, remember that the makeup that is being worn for our runway has to be so much more dramatic than your day-to-day. You got to paint for the back of the room. And a lot of us, I don't have a lot of experience with makeup, but I don't tend to wear a very dramatic look, and I don't even know how to go about that. And so we do have a service. In the past, we've partnered with Trashion, which is a beautician training school here in town. And we're in the process of redeveloping our relationship with them, as well as having some other just local hair and makeup stylists that are available. So that's on the day of the show to get your hair and makeup done. And that's open to both the models and the designers, but we do give the models first priority because they need to be ready for the runway show. Can you request specific music? So this is an event. It is so energy filled, and we do have a DJ there. And you can request music, but know that any of the music that we play needs to be in the public domain. And so she may find a track that is in the style of something that you're wanting. But if you're wanting from someone famous like Rihanna or Nicki Minaj or something like that, likely won't be able to fulfill that request, but we may be able to find something similar for you. What's the criteria? And we've talked about this a little bit already, but originality, making sure that most of the materials of your design are previously owned or unwanted, that it's a complete ensemble, and that it's fully transformed. And again, making sure that when you submit your design, that you're giving us a picture of the raw materials, the source materials as well, before they were transformed. What counts as previously owned? This is another frequent question. Maybe it's clothing that you've already worn, someone else has already worn, so this could be thrifted. Could be materials that were originally purchased for another purpose, like drapery or upholstery. That are being replaced or discarded. Or it could be scraps from other sewing projects. We've had some really successful designs. Last year, I think the design that closed the show was this beautiful dress that came from scraps from bridal gown fittings. So this really, really high quality material just assembled in a different way. And again, looking at it, you would never know that they came from wedding gowns. So those are all the questions that are frequently coming up. One of our other designers, past designers, and a member of our planning committee this year, Jamie Ford, she had a couple of things that she wanted to make sure that I mentioned. One is if you're not a sewer, but you have an idea for a design. Maybe you do really well with draping something on yourself or on a mannequin or on someone else. That's great. Just pin it in place. And you can get help sewing. There's Discardia Mending Day that happens right here at the Monroe County Public Library. I believe it's the second Saturday of every month, but you can check their calendar to see. And they can give you tips on that. We also talked about glue guns, which are a favorite of crafters and makers. Stapling, we've had people staple things together. We've had people use duct tape. You'll see duct tape down in the modeling room, definitely on the day of, as well as sewing. So don't be afraid of that. But the one thing, as you're putting a design together, especially if you're not using traditional sewing techniques, is think about how the model is going to get into and out of it. Because there are a number of staircases that they will have to climb and navigate, as well as they're going to be in the design all day. And if they are participating in multiple runways, if they're modeling different outfits, they need to be able to get in and out of the outfit. So think about your closures. Think about how someone is going to get in and out of the outfit without destroying the outfit. Any other things, any advice you have?
For first-time designers, I would say just go for it. I know it can be very, very daunting to cut into that fabric. I know when my first year, I was really scared, and I kept putting it off until I couldn't anymore. And even though it can be scary, just make sure the measurements are right, double check, triple check. And once you're certain that the measurements are good, you can just start cutting away. And again, we have a really good support system for if you need help with sewing, finding a sewing machine, just helping you construct your garment. Once you have that idea that you can clearly communicate to us, I think it's always okay. If you fail the first time, you can learn from your mistakes, and there's always a way to undo the sewing and re-sew if you make a mistake. So it's going to be okay.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. So just go for it. Just do it. And hopefully time won't run out, but we are coming into the holidays and everyone's schedules gets upended. So wanted to make sure to get out ahead of it before going into the holidays. And this is our 16th year. We're hoping to see a lot of new and different designs and designers coming into the community. Our Facebook group is really active, so if you have any questions that are really specific to designing, they can help you with that. Going to bloomingtontrashion.org and take a look at past designs for inspiration or motivation, to know many other people have walked in your shoes and have been on the fence about, should I do this or not? And then they go for it, as Sophia said, and it turns out. We also, thanks to Sophia, have a really strong presence on Instagram. So lots of bold designs and some spotlights of past designs and designers and some of the planning committee members, so you can get a feel for behind the curtain, what's going on there. Are there any last questions? Did this spur any other questions? No? Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and I hope to see your designs on the runway. Thank you.